rolling hills of Nunya.
I'm Cody,
And I'm Tyler.
and this is the Edible Attitude Podcast.
Hey, man.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Swell.
Good to hear.
Yeah, man.
How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. Doing some spring cleaning and getting ready for summer. Mowing, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's always fun. Getting back
Yeah.
into the swing of things.
Yeah, but that fresh air is good. That warm, fresh air is real nice.
That vitamin D, it
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, vitamin D and C and E. We love our vitamin alphabet. What about you? How's your week been?
Great.
Yeah?
Getting back into the swing of things too. Doing
Mm.
some cleaning also.
Mhm.
Mowing.
Mm-hmm.
Getting stuff prepared for the summer to come. Have you ever heard of Robert Johnson?
I have.
What do you know about him?
Very little. I had heard some, I don't know, some on like YouTube a few years ago I'd come across, or maybe it was Reddit. I had seen something somewhere about Robert Johnson. The only thing I know is he was like a really bad guitarist and then, quote unquote, was the first man to make a deal with the devil and then was the best guitarist ever. I don't know, something like that, I think is what I recall.
Kinda. You're close.
Yeah.
You're pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah. That's I don't remember details. I just remember he sucked. Deal with the devil. He was the first one to ever do it, supposedly in like the 18 or 1900s.
Yeah.
That I don't
Mhm.
fucking believe that he's the first one ever to do it. And then yeah, he was the best ever, quote unquote. I don't know the details though. Other crossroads happened at a crossroads. Maybe he was the first one at a crossroads.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
See, we're coming out with theories already in the beginning, folks. Did you think this kind of action would happen just a
We're
few episodes ago?
We're jumping right into
Look how
it.
advanced we've become in just a few short weeks.
It's so quick. This is going to be a 30-minute one easy.
No, but yeah, just that's the gist of what I understand about it. So I'm super excited to learn more details about it and get into it and dissect it.
The more research I did on it,
Yeah.
the more I...
The more abstract and confusing it got.
Right.
Hmm.
At some points.
Fun. I'm excited. Buckle up, bitches.
So for those of you who don't know, Robert Johnson was an American blues musician and a songwriter. He had landmark recordings in 1936 and 1937 and displayed a combination of singing, guitar skills, and a songwriting talent that influenced the later generations of musicians.
So is he the original blues man? He said he
Maybe.
did blues, right? Like that was his stick.
Well, although his recording career only was 7 months long,
Whoa, that's super short.
he's recognized as a master of the blues in the Delta blues style of music and as one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame describes him as being the first ever rock star.
Dang, the first rock star.
Yeah, the Rock and Roll
Dude,
Hall of Fame.
What a cool title to have, though. The first ever rock star?
The first ever.
Yeah, that's a sick title to have. Is it not?
He's got to earn it,
I've never
though.
thought about it. It sounds like he did. They gave it to him.
Oh, no.
He set trends for decades, and they named him the first ever rock star. I mean, maybe a little help with the devil, but
we'll find out.
he did the steps.
Yeah, he definitely
He did
followed.
the footwork.
Yeah.
He laid the foundation.
Yeah, he had to start somewhere.
Yeah. So he's got some credit, right? No matter the price, he was the first. And if
It's
you ain't
true.
first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Damn it, Ricky.
Damn it, Ricky.
So the father of blues and rock and roll is what I'm understanding.
So as a traveling performer who mostly played on street corners and juke joints.
Sounds like a whore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Street corners and juke joints.
Street corners and juke joints.
Sounds
man.
like a hussy.
He didn't yeah, kinda. I mean, he didn't really have a lot
Yeah.
of commercial or public success in his lifetime.
Was he like the underground?
Kind
Like how
of.
there's underground music? Was he like underground at the time?
Could have been. Maybe he just wasn't playing in big areas.
You know,
He,
podunk little towns.
that would make sense as to why he didn't get much.
Good way to build legend about yourself.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
worked.
true.
Hmm.
Gotta start somewhere,
He
right?
hit all the little areas, yeah.
He only participated in the two recording sessions.
Right.
Both of them produced together 29 songs who were recorded by the Country Music Hall of Fame producer Don Law. These songs were recorded solo in improvised studios, and most of them were released from 1937 to 1938. And then some more were released after he died.
So this is the 30s.
Yep.
Depression era OG. Okay. Improvised sound studios in those times. Picture it. What does it look like? Is it just like some plywood?
I'm assuming they would maybe buy or rent out a building and then just set it up real quick. If it's improvised, it had to have been quick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they would have had,
Maybe like they just take over the local radio station or something.
could have been, or had like a team set up something ahead of time before they got
Yeah.
into town and then take it down after they left. I don't know.
Maybe. Huh. The traveling sound.
Could be.
I guess in those times you'd almost have to find talent. Not a lot of travelers. I mean, there was, but there wasn't.
What's interesting about these recordings is that very little was known of him during his life outside of the small musical circuit in the Mississippi Delta where he spent most of his life. And much of his story has been reconstructed after his death by researchers. So not a lot was written
Mm,
down about him or
right.
recorded.
Not a lot of written history on the man. It's just
No.
been like people trying to delve into other like did they interview people who said they knew him? Or how are they getting their data if there's none of this written information?
Well, some things were like written down,
Yeah.
like the recordings of
Mhm.
him, like a birth certificate, a marriage certificate. I'm sure
Oh,
there
he was
was one
married.
at one point. Yeah. Because his life was so poorly documented, after he died, it gave that much credibility to his legend that he
Right.
had at the time. And the one that he's most famous for, he sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads to achieve his musical success.
It was yeah, it's at like the crossroads are famous now. I think like they're well known in the area.
Even though his music was not very big, he had a very influential following during his life and in the 2 decades after he had passed away.
Right.
In 1938, a man named John Hammond tried to find him to ask him to perform at a concert at Carnegie Hall,
Oh
only
shit.
to discover
Carnegie freaking Hall.
Carnegie Hall,
That's huge.
only to discover Johnson had died. You remember Don, the country music
Mhm.
guy?
Mhm.
He worked for Columbia Records at the time and he assembled a collection of Johnson's recordings and he titled them The King of the Delta Blues Singers. It was later released in 1961.
So when I had initially heard about this, I feel like I went and listened to something and like to some of the stuff on YouTube. I just don't
Some of his
remember it.
music is cool.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah. I need to go back and listen to it because I don't really remember it. I do remember them saying that when he played the guitar, it sounded like more than one person playing the guitar. Why they say it was definitely the devil, you know? Because how else could he have multiple hands going? It's the devil's hand invisible playing along with him. I found that interesting.
So the album itself became influential, especially on the British blues movement. Eric Clapton has called Robert Johnson the most important blues singer that ever lived. Bob Dylan and Keith Richards have also cited both Johnson's lyrics and his musicianship as key influences on their own work. Many of Johnson's songs have been covered over the years, becoming hits for other artists, and his guitar licks and lyrics have been borrowed by many later musicians. So
Yeah,
many to name.
I bet if he was the OG of the Delta Blues and the first rock star,
Yeah.
and he said trends. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. He's people copied. That's what humans do. That's fine.
Monkey see, monkey do.
It's yeah. It's part of us evolving as a species is learning from each other.
Facts.
Yeah.
So starting in the 1960s, there was a more interest of Johnson,
Mhm.
kind of like a cult following.
Legend had grown.
Right. Much of what we know about him was reconstructed by researchers in different films over the years. One in
Okay.
1991 and one in 1997. Both of them were documentaries. They all included reconstructed scenes of what could potentially have happened in
Hmm.
certain interactions.
That's unfortunate that there's just not enough history on the guy to actually know. It's
Uh,
all speculation by the sounds of it.
There's not a lot of documents to demonstrate what actually, what actually happens.
Mhm.
There's very, very thin historical record of him. On the plus side, though, the significance of Robert Johnson's work and his music has been recognized by the Rock and Roll, the Grammy, and the Blues Hall of Fame.
That's incredible for
Yeah.
having just 2 recording sessions,
Yeah.
was it?
2
Yeah.
recording sessions,
That's
29
insane.
different songs, and then he's good.
The fact that he had that many songs all pumped and ready to go is impressive.
Well, he was a traveling musician. You gotta have something,
Yeah.
locked
I
and
guess
loaded.
if that's all you're doing,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep.
I imagine artists have a bunch. What a fucking ledge, though.
Let's talk about his early life. Maybe this will start to answer some questions for you.
Okay.
Robert Leroy Johnson was born in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. Possibly.
That's bullshit. Maybe.
There's not an accurate answer,
His
but
birth certificate. What do you mean?
possibly on May 8th.
Did they have just shit birth certificates at the time or what?
It was 1911 when he was born.
Okay.
They
When
could have
did
got lost. They could have got smudged, or
Yeah.
coffee. The
Yeah,
coffee
it
was
was
dripped on
probably
it.
ink and feather, huh?
Not much light.
Dude, people wrote like fucking hieroglyphics back then compared to now.
They had
They
to.
wrote real nice and clean. Let's be 100% here.
Maybe they just had a better school system.
Maybe Satan smudged it. He's like, Satan, fuck up my birth certificate and we good.
He
Make
knew.
everybody just not know shit about me and let me be a legend
Hell yeah.
and the greatest of all time. Okay, you got 2 years. Would you take it to be considered like the greatest guitarist of all time?
For 2 years?
The original rock and roller, king of the Delta blues,
For 2 years. And then just get
and then
taken.
your name is remembered forever.
No.
No?
No. Wouldn't do it. It
Yeah.
was the dumbest trade ever.
Yeah?
I can't see the fruits of my victory. How can I
You don't know
like
that.
him?
Maybe you could. Maybe there's another realm beyond this that you can. Some believe that.
He was born to Julia and Noah.
Maybe.
Maybe. But
Allegedly.
but
There's gonna
Julia
be I feel like there's gonna be a lot of allegedly in this.
Julia was married to a man named Charles.
That young
Scandalous.
lady, scandalous lady, that hussy.
Now, Charles was a relatively prosperous landowner and a furniture maker. She also had 10 children with him
And this bastard child.
and this bastard child.
I feel you, brother.
The Charles had then been forced by a lynch mob to leave Hazelhurst following a dispute with some white landowners.
Yeah, well,
Fucking white people,
can't
man.
do that in them days.
No.
Unfortunately.
Julia left with Charles and baby Robert.
Left the other 9 behind.
No, and everybody else that came
Okay.
with. In 2 years, though, they went to Memphis, and then Charles had then changed his name to Charles Spencer. Had to change his name because he got ran out.
People didn't like him no more.
No.
He was not a great guy, it sounds like.
No.
Sounds like he just stirred a bunch of stuff up.
We fucked with the wrong people.
Yeah.
Robert then spent the next 8 to 9 years growing up in Memphis and attending the Carnes Avenue Colored School, where he received lessons in arithmetic, reading, language, music, and geography.
Swell.
Great.
Music was his favorite class, I hope.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
It was in Memphis that he acquired his love and knowledge for the blues
Mhm.
and popular music at the time.
Of course, it's yeah.
So after Robert did his education, he rejoined his mother around 1920-ish,
Allegedly.
allegedly. After she remarried, but she remarried this time to a sharecropper named Will Dusty Willis.
Will Willis.
Will Willis.
Hmm. Was he dirty? Oh, they call him Dusty.
Dusty.
Hey, Dusty.
Why Dusty, though?
That's what I'm saying.
No idea.
Is he just like not real clean, but not real dirty? Just a hint of dust on him at all times. Not fully wet, but not fully dry. Just a little damp.
Like,
Like he looked like he went swimming about 20, 30 minutes ago.
and he's dusty because
He's mostly dry, but he's a little dusty.
I mean, that maybe. They originally settled on a plantation in Arkansas, but soon moved across the Mississippi River to the Mississippi Delta.
This is where he learned his specialty, I'm guessing.
After living on the plantation for a little bit, some of the residents referred to him as Little Robert Dusty.
Ew, because of his stepdaddy.
Yeah.
Hey, little Robert Dusty. Do you think that pissed him right off?
I don't know.
I ain't Dusty. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would like being called after my stepdaddy if I was a grown man or close to.
So, as far as researchers go, they learned that in the 1920 census, he's
Right.
actually listed as Robert Spencer.
That was his mother's husband.
The first one.
And people thought it was his daddy.
Right.
They kept the thing up, yeah.
Yeah. Between 1924 and 1927, he went back to school. And the quality of his signature on his marriage certificate suggests that he was relatively well educated for a man of his background.
Sounds like he went to a few educations.
Yeah.
A few schools, you know.
He probably learned a thing or two because he knows a thing or two.
Right.
He had a school friend named Willie. He was also interviewed and filmed later in his life. He recalled that a young Robert was already noted for playing the harmonica and jaw harp. Willie
Ooh.
also recalled that Robert was absent for long periods, which suggests that he may have been living and studying in Memphis.
Just out on the streets studying. So, but they're saying like his friend was saying he was already kind of a prominent musician before he took up the guitar, the harmonica and the jaw thing,
The
right?
jaw harp, yep.
Jaw harp, yeah.
So he's
yeah.
getting some musical talent.
Usually musicians are talented in an instrument. They can do well in other instruments as well. A little practice.
I wouldn't know. The only thing I can play is the skin flute really well, and that's about it.
Wasn't ready for that one. Because I was trying to picture like what was I going to put up to my mouth. What kind of instrument could I put up to my mouth or hands? What can I put in my hands? And then you say your skin flute specifically. You've mastered your skin flute. And I'm just, whoa. That's bullshit.
His mom eventually told Robert about his biological father.
Right.
So then he adopted the surname Johnson,
Mhm.
and he then used it on his marriage certificate to his wife in February of 1929.
More of a common name.
Yeah.
I don't know for the time, I guess, but I would imagine so.
Unfortunately, she died in childbirth.
His wife. Oh, no.
Some surviving relatives of his wife told the blues researcher, a Mr. Robert McCormick, that this was divine punishment for Robert's decision to sing non-religious songs, or quote unquote, selling her soul to the devil. McCormick believed that Johnson himself accepted the phrase as a description of his resolve to abandon the settled life of a husband and a farmer to become a full-time blues musician.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Whatever. Fuck that guy.
Your wife and your child died because you didn't sing for Jesus.
That wasn't him. That was the relatives of his wife that were saying that.
Yeah, all of them. Fuck them.
Fuck him.
Yeah, I ain't done with that. Well, they thought he sold his soul already?
Yeah, already.
Well, okay, fair statement by them then, I guess. I mean, if that's what they think, if they think he sold his soul, then I can't argue it. If that's their honest beliefs and feelings, then you got to speak your truth.
Around the same time, the blues musician Son House moved to Robinsonville, where House's partner, Willie,
More Willie.
Willie.
There's a lot of Willie in here.
Yeah, that's where he lived. Later in life, Mr. House remembered Johnson as a little boy who was a competent harmonica player, but an embarrassingly bad guitarist. I'm assuming that House had told Robert Johnson about his bad guitar playing. He left Robinsonville for the area around Martinsville. There, he perfected his guitar style of House and learned other styles from a Mr. Ike Zimmerman. Here's an interesting little tidbit about Mr. Zimmerman.
Okay.
He was rumored to have learned supernaturally to play guitar by visiting graveyards at midnight.
Speaking with the spirits.
So Johnson had left, right? He left
Right.
Robinsonville. When he
Mm-hmm.
came back, he seemed to have miraculously acquired a guitar technique. Mr. House was interviewed at the time when the legend of Johnson's pact with the devil was well known among blues researchers at the time. And he was asked whether he attributed Johnson's technique to this pact, and the answer he gave was very vague, so they've taken it as a confirmation.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
It fits our narrative, of course. Yeah, that's just what people do. We're not sure, but we know what kind of guy he is.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. We know him really well, and this is how he actually feels.
Wink, wink.
Yeah.
He married again to a Coletta in May of 1931, and in 1932, they settled for a little bit in Mississippi, in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
But Johnson soon left for a career as a walking musician.
He's like, you know what, honey? I'm out of here.
To make matters worse,
I'm walking.
she died the next year.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah.
How many cells has he sacrificed? 3 at this rate.
There's going to be a 6-year gap between 1932 until he died in 1938.
He's just walking about from the sounds of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he just
mean,
got up and
no one's
left.
keeping tabs of him.
He moved frequently between the cities of Memphis and Helena, and he also visited smaller towns in the Mississippi Delta and some neighboring regions in Mississippi and Arkansas. The blues musician Johnny Shines accompanied him to Chicago, Texas, New York, Canada, Kentucky, and Indiana.
So he traveled well.
Yeah, he went everywhere.
Yeah. Across North America.
As he was, moving around quite a bit, he would usually stay with members of his family or some female friends that he had acquired.
Every place he arrived.
He never
Magically.
married anybody again, but he did form some long-term relationships with some women.
In each city he visited.
Right. And usually when he went back, he'd visit them periodically.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. You gotta have your regulars.
Yeah.
Huh.
In other places that he stayed where he didn't have any connections, he would have to use his ability to befriend more women.
He probably just pulled his cock out, I imagine. I don't know. Robert Big Ball Johnson.
His last name is Johnson. Bob John.
Yeah.
Because he moved around so much, he didn't really talk about who he was. And a lot of Johnson's hosts that he had were real ignorant of who he actually was. And he used about at least 8 different surnames in his
Yeah.
traveling.
That'd be hard to keep up with.
Now you can see why we don't have a lot of actual.
Everyone knew him as a different person.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. He was very good at convincing people.
Right. Those big fat.
There are other biographers who have looked at some consistencies from other musicians who might have knew Robert Johnson in different contexts, maybe.
Right.
Either from like mass knowledge or partial knowledge of him, didn't matter. Conflicting and inconsistent eyewitnessing accounts. Biographers have attempted to summarize who Johnson was. Here's what they said. He was well-mannered. He was soft-spoken. He was indecipherable. As for his character, everyone seemed to agree that while he was pleasant and outgoing in public, in private he was reserved and liked to go his own way. Musicians who knew Johnson testified that he was a nice guy and fairly average, except, of course, for his musical talent, his weakness for whiskey and women, and his commitment to the road.
This sounds like a dedicated man
Yeah, he
to
just had
what
a
he enjoyed.
mission.
Yeah, he just lived life for what he loved. And people say he was taken over by the demon, by Satan. He didn't conform to society.
He didn't listen to nobody.
He's a Satanist. Sounds about right to me.
So when Johnson arrived in a new town, he would usually play for tips on street corners or in front of the local barbershops or restaurants. Some musical associates of his have said that in live performances, Johnson often did not focus on his dark and complex original compositions, but instead he played well-known pop songs or pop
Right.
standards or
Yeah.
whatever of
Like
the
the
day.
radio hits, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah, like top 40. Bling, ding, ding. I want to hear him doing the dueling banjos.
That
That'd
would be
sick.
awesome.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, he is playing both parts.
That'd been good. He had a weird ability to pick up tunes when he heard them.
Mm-hmm.
So someone could play something and
He could
play
replicate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had no trouble of giving the audiences that he played for what they wanted, and some of his peers later remarked on his interest of jazz and country music.
Makes sense.
He also had a weird ability to establish a rapport with his audience, kind of like Freddie Mercury.
He's like a good host.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was entertaining.
Yeah.
This rapport that he would build with his audience would then serve him well when he passed through again, either in a
Right.
year or a month. So he left 5-star Yelp reviews
Right.
everywhere.
And then he'd come back and people would hook him up. They're like, "Oh, what up, Robert?
Yeah,
Come hang out, dude.
absolutely.
I got a spot for you. I got
Living
women and
in
whiskey,
now.
Robert.
Women and whiskey.
Just try to be polite here.
Mr. Shines, remember Johnny Shines?
Johnny Shines?
The one
Yeah,
that
I think so.
traveled with him?
Right.
So he was interviewed,
Yeah.
and Shines was about 20-ish when he met Johnson in 1936. He told interviewers that he thought that Johnson was maybe a year older than himself. And
Yeah.
actually,
I'd say
he
he's
was,
like in his 20s because they think he was born in 1911, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 20 something.
So he was actually 24 or 25.
Yeah.
Wasn't very old. Mr. Shines was then quoted in describing him. Robert was a very friendly person, even though he was sulky at times, and I hung around Robert for quite a while. One evening he disappeared. He was kind of a peculiar fellow. Robert, he be standing up playing someplace like nobody's business. At about that time, it was a hustle with him as well as a pleasure, and money'd be coming in from all directions. But Robert would just pick up and walk off and leave you standing there playing. And you wouldn't see Robert no more, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. So Robert and I, we began journeying off, and I was just, matter of fact, tagging along.
Yeah. He's just chasing Robert down.
Yeah.
Trying to fucking
He's
get
like,
up
come
to him.
here.
He's like, dude, what do you come on, man? You're fucking up my money.
We got
we're-
shit to
We're
do.
making such good money. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Robert,
He's like, I'm getting laid. I got whiskey and women, dude.
I gotta go.
I got enough. Calculations have been made.
The road calls me. What if that's why he started walking? He just was called to the road now.
Oh, like in a trance.
Maybe.
Dude. Yeah, think about it. Like he's just like, all right, ding ding ding, time to go. Time's up.
He didn't care
On to the
about
next one.
money or nothing because he knew.
Damn. He was on a schedule
Yeah, he had to get
that
stuff
he couldn't
done.
control.
He did not read the terms and conditions. I can
No.
tell you that
Yeah,
much.
the fine print was in the back rear view.
Real small.
Yeah, he didn't even realize it wrapped around back there. You know, he was just like, "Oh, sign here, cool."
There's a second page.
Nah, we're good. Where do I need to sign? What's the AP? You know what? I don't care. I don't care about the APR. It's
It does.
fine.
It does. It doesn't matter right
Yeah,
now.
I don't care about the warranties, none of it. Just sign me up.
We talked about recording sessions earlier.
2 of them, correct?
2 of 'em.
29
Yep.
songs.
The only reason that he got found was from a general store manager.
Was he in the freezer or what?
No,
what are you talking
no,
about?
no. He was a general store manager, but he also acted as a talent scout. So he was
Okay.
like,
So he knew Robert.
right.
Okay.
this manager guy,
Yeah, yeah.
put him in touch with a salesman named Ernie.
Perfect. I thought
Who
it'd be
then-
Willie.
No, no, it's Ernie this
Okay.
time. And then Ernie introduced him to Don Law.
And that's when the recordings popped. So
Yeah.
he knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy and hooked them up.
Yep.
Okay.
In 1936, in the Gunter Hotel in San Antonio, Texas,
Sounds haunted.
in a group. Yeah, sorry, that was a good entrance, huh? It was a grueling 3-day session, but Johnson played 16 selections and recorded alternate takes for almost all of them. There's different versions of his songs out there too,
Damn.
from him.
Yeah. So he just got like 3 audibles per song.
Maybe.
He's like, we got an A chord, B chord, and D chord. Each and every 29 of them.
In the other recording session in 1937, Johnson then traveled to Dallas, Texas to again meet up with Don.
Right.
Johnson then recorded the rest of his 29 songs to make up his entire discography in Dallas, and 11 records from this session were released within the following year. Most of Johnson's somber and introspective songs and performances come from his second recording session. Johnson also did 2 takes of most of these songs, and the recordings of those takes survived.
That's good. I want to hear it all.
Me too, man.
Front to back. All 3 audibles.
All 3 audibles.
If you're enjoying this topic and would like to talk more about it,
You can find us at Edible Attitude or at Edible Attitude Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. So let's talk about that devil legend that he's got going on with him.
yeah.
According to this legend, as a young man living on the plantation in rural Mississippi, Johnson had a tremendous desire to become a great blues musician.
That was his jam.
One of the legends often says that Johnson was instructed to
Okay.
take his guitar to a crossroad near Dockery Plantation at midnight. There are claims for the other sites as the location of the crossroads also,
So there's multiple crossroad locations.
possibly.
Yeehaw. Okay.
Just like his birth, possibly.
Yeah.
These other locations, they are the intersection of Highway 61 and Highway 49 near Clarksdale, Mississippi, or the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 8 near Rosedale in Mississippi also.
61 does sound familiar. I don't remember that. 6 maybe because that was my football number though. See, yeah, can't trust it.
I don't know.
Can't trust that intuition right there.
No.
No.
So right now, knowing that, which one do you think it happened at?
I mean, maybe 1 and 8 because that makes 9, and 9's an upside down 6.
That was a good one.
That one maybe, but then the first one you read sounds convincing too. Like go to the plantation crossroads at midnight.
That one works.
Yeah,
I like that one.
is that what you're riding with there, bud?
No, but
Okay.
I like
What
that
do you
one.
think?
I'll go with the other one.
Plantation.
No, I'll go with Clarksdale, the one with 61 and 49.
49.
Yeah. So at this crossroads, he was apparently met by a large black man who took the guitar and tuned it. The devil played a few songs and then returned the guitar to Johnson, thus giving him mastery over the instrument. In exchange for his soul, Johnson was able to create the blues for which he was famous for. The story of the deal with the devil at the crossroads also mirrors a classic German legend of Faust.
Faust.
Faust was unsatisfied with his life as a scholar, and he just becomes depressed.
Okay.
After a failed attempt to take his own life, he calls on the devil for further knowledge and magic powers with which to indulge all the pleasure and knowledge of the world.
Right.
In response, the devil's representative,
Mhm.
Mephistopheles, appears.
Oh,
Yeah.
sounds like genital warts or something.
If you were a loved one or diagnosed with Mephistopheles, you may be
yeah, exactly.
entitled for compensation.
Entitled for compensation.
That's bullshit.
So Mephistopheles appears and he makes a bargain with Faust, even though he had already asked the devil.
Right.
So Mephistopheles will then serve Faust with his magical powers for a set number of years. But at the end of the number of years, the devil will come to claim Faust's soul.
And that'll be the end of the contract.
Yep.
Life over. So,
There-
big man in black.
There,
Hulking figure in black.
it just says there he was met by a large black man. So it could have been a shadow.
To me, it sounds like he was impersonating a large African American man.
Could have been.
You know?
Even because Johnson was black, maybe he would...
Well, they say, you can't truly lay your eyes on him, right? Your mind would go crazy.
Right, because he's an archangel.
Yeah.
It's a human. We can't handle it.
Correct.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he grabbed it, tuned it, played it, which was actually him like spelling into it the ability to rock out.
We're getting somewhere.
Okay.
I like it.
I mean, that's just for my movies and games and
Yeah, that would make the most sense,
theories. I don't know.
though. He imbued the strings, and then when Johnson played the guitar...
The classic song, Devil Went Down to Georgia. Playing the fiddle.
Well, I mean,
He tuned it. He played it.
Yeah.
The
The devil went down to Georgia way
Devil Went
after
Down to
Johnson.
Jamaica. Also another classic. He's been everywhere, making deals, failing a lot of them, but making deals.
That's important, I think.
Yeah.
Got to get those souls.
Yeah.
The legend was developed over time, and Johnson became more known as a name, largely due to his rediscovery by white people
Of course.
20 decades
Yeah.
or like 2 decades later after his death.
Yeah. Look at what we did again. Look at who we found.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
what we did.
Look at us European white folks finding the most talent. Fuck all. Such classic white person thing to do.
It would be too.
Whiteys.
So you remember Mr. House, the guitarist?
Yep.
He told a record producer how Johnson mastered the guitar,
Okay.
and other interviewers failed to obtain any confirmation from Mr. House. And there was only 2 years between House's observation of Johnson the first time of being a novice and then a
Mhm.
master.
Damn. That's quick.
Yeah.
To be novice to master.
Further details were then added from the imaginative retellings by a couple of writers at the time. Most significantly, the deal was added that Johnson received his gift from a large black man at the crossroads. So initially, it wasn't a part of the story. It was added into it.
Gotta
Because,
spice it up.
well, people began talking and they're like, oh, that makes the most sense,
What else could it be? It's got to be a big black man.
There's actually dispute how the Crossroads origin story ties into Johnson because, like I said, it was not originally there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the evidence suggests an origin story with the Crossroads from another blues musician named Tommy Johnson.
Okay.
Tom John.
Yeah, Tommy John.
So this story of Tom John was collected from his musical associate and his elder brother Liddell in the 1960s. So according to Liddell, he placed the meeting not at a crossroads, but in a graveyard,
Right.
which kind of resembles the same story that Ike said earlier. There is a more recent research that makes the story much more clear.
Theory, allegedly.
Theory,
Yeah.
allegedly,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Let's hear it.
Robert Johnson and Ike Zimmerman did practice in a graveyard at night, but it was because it was quiet and no one would disturb them.
I mean, yeah.
That makes sense.
Graves aren't going to hop up and tell you to be quiet.
But it wasn't in just one graveyard, it was in several graveyards in the area. So they moved around because,
Yeah.
he was a
Yeah.
traveling musician.
Well, and I mean, it just keeps like authority off you. You can move around and local police are like, hey, get out of here, you little blues playing skedaddler, Skedaddle. Get out of here.
So Zimmerman's the one that helped him develop his skill.
Right. So he's the coach.
Yep.
instead of the devil, right? This is where his actual talent came from, is his coach, is another theory,
Right.
right?
And Johnson actually spent about a year living with Zimmerman himself and learning from him
Mm-hmm.
as a coach. He ultimately accompanied Robert back to the Delta to look after him.
People didn't catch on to that. They just said it's a devil.
Zimmerman's a devil.
I mean, he could be.
Maybe.
You never know. While there have been different locations, like we talked about before, that have been claimed as the mythical crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
there also is a tourist attraction. It's claiming to be the actual one, which is in the Rosedale, Mississippi.
Why do they claim it?
They just claimed that the intersection of Highway 1 and 8 in their town was where it happened.
Huh. Sounds familiar.
A blues historian named Steve
Steve.
wrote that it may be impossible to discover the exact location of the mythical crossroads because Robert Johnson was a rambling guy.
He was a smooth talker, right? He could build rapport and talk his way into things and out of things. And I don't know about out of things. I guess it sounded like he didn't get in trouble. He was polite.
He was
But-
polite, super nice.
He could get himself assistance. He built rapport with the audience
Yep.
by communicating.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had a slick tongue. And yeah, I mean, with the man dead, how you ever gonna know what the story is? It's all speculation by the sounds of it. I'm here for it, but I'm just so contorted on what to think. I don't know where to
Just
go.
a lot of theories, a lot
Yeah.
of questions, a lot of what ifs.
A lot of interesting plausibilities that I like.
Some interpretations of the legend itself is that the devil in the songs that he's playing for may not refer to the Christian figure of Satan, but also the trickster god of African origin, whose name is Legba. He himself directly is associated with Crossroads.
That's interesting. He does like to sing about crossroads, I noticed.
Yeah. A lot of his songs are talking about Crossroads with the
Yeah.
devil.
Yeah, maybe he just picked a style and sailed on it. He was ahead of his time as far as, like they say, pick your niche. He niched himself and took off.
Which was a good niche for him.
It
I
worked
think.
out.
Yeah.
Especially dying young.
Yeah.
It really paid out.
Well. No.
If he wanted to be famous,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
if that was his goal.
People still talk about him.
Yeah.
A folklore researcher, Mr. Harry, wrote that during his research in the South from 1935 to 1939 is when African Americans born in the 19th or the 20th century said they or anyone else had sold their soul to the devil at the crossroads. When they said that, they had a different meaning in mind, and Harry claimed that there was evidence indicating African religious support surrounding Legba and the making of the deal itself, quote unquote. Not really selling the soul in the same sense as the Faust tradition.
Okay. And he did it with Legba, not Satan.
That's what Harry thinks.
Right. That's what he's singing about. Is that what he thinks he actually did? Like he's singing about what he did,
Maybe he made a deal
with
instead
Legba.
of like selling his soul. He made some sort of deal.
Still seems like he sold his soul because he died. Maybe he didn't realize he sold his soul, but he did.
I mean, when he left his community as basically a shitty guitarist, people obviously said, yeah, he sold his soul to the devil, which it fits with the old African association with the crossroads where you find wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So you go down crossroads to learn.
Right.
And in the case of the Faustian pact, his was wisdom.
But where'd the wisdom get him, Dad? Yeah, none of it seems to pay out ever, really.
No, you're messing with
You
with
just
fire.
die. It's just for a name, and it might or might not live on. Because I'd never heard of Faust.
Me either.
The name Faust sounds familiar from something, but not from this story.
Robert Johnson, unfortunately, died on August 16th, 1938.
While playing the skin flute.
Wow. Getting it. At the
Wow,
ripe-
getting it.
Oh.
He was getting it. Dude?
No.
he was getting.
No. No, he died at
Took
the
a left
right.
turn so fast.
He died at the ripe old age of 27
That's bullshit.
near Greenwood, Mississippi. He died of unknown causes.
Of course. Yeah, 27.
Yeah. His death was not publicly reported, and almost 30 years later, a musicologist researching Johnson's life found his death certificate, which listed only the date and the location with no official cause of death. No formal autopsy had been done. Instead, a different examination was done to file the death certificate, and no immediate cause of death was determined. It's likely that he had syphilis, and it was suspected later by medical professionals that this may have been a contributing factor in his death.
Syphilis, so that like turns you into a zombie. Like it like melts your face, I'm pretty sure. I feel like it'd been very apparent if he had syphilis.
Not if he,
Dude, I swear.
not if he hit it well.
How are you hiding that as a walking man at that time? 1930s, 40s.
Syphilis
You ain't
absolutely
hiding it.
does make you look like a zombie.
Yeah. Something straight out of a horror film if it's not treated. I don't know if he was hiding it like that. That sounds like unless he wasn't eating well too and he was just malnourished. But it sounded like he made money.
Yeah.
Drank it all. Poor liver, syphilis. Maybe he didn't have time to really rot him away, but just kill him on the inside.
I mean,
Multitude of things.
with that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what your face looks like. What does your insides look like?
Worse.
I'd imagine. Ugh.
There have been several different accounts that have described the events leading up to Johnson's death.
Right.
He was playing for a few weeks at a country dance in a town about 15 miles from Greenwood. According to one theory, Johnson was murdered by the jealous husband of a woman with whom he had flirted with.
Well, flirted with. Come on, dude.
Wow.
That's a little unnecessary.
People get upset.
Don't mean you gotta kill a man for flirting.
You know, no, maybe this was more than once. He was a traveling man. Maybe he came back.
Yeah. I mean, if he like put his hands on her and assaulted her in some sort of way, I could see where you might lose your temper a little bit if you've been drinking.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I think it's okay, but that's more understanding if he was a real dickhole, jerkhole, whatever you want to go with.
Either way.
You know, stabbed him with a syphilis pen or what?
A syphilis pen. In another account by a blues musician, Johnson had been flirting with this married woman, so another person had seen it. So he was flirting with this married woman at the dance, and she gave him a bottle of whiskey that was poisoned by her husband. When Johnson took the bottle, the said blues musician knocked it out of his hand and scolding him, telling him to never drink a bottle that he had not personally seen opened. Johnson then replied with, "Don't ever knock a bottle out of my hand,
Motherfucker.
motherfucker." Soon after that, he was offered another bottle, and he was like, "Nah, I'm doing it." And he took it. Johnson is reported to have began feeling ill the evening after and had been helped back to his room in the early morning hours. Over the next 3 days, his condition steadily worsened, and witnesses reported that he died in a convulsive state of severe pain. A musicologist claimed to have tracked down the man who murdered Johnson and has obtained a confession from him in a personal interview, but conveniently, he's declined to reveal the man's name. Shocking.
I mean, if he promised the man he wouldn't reveal his name,
I promise I won't.
are you a man of your word or are you not? At a point,
I guess, but it's
murder.
and a mystery, murder mystery.
Yeah,
It's a mystery. Got to figure it out, right?
but if you're trying to make money on the murder mystery, you keep it a mystery. Sounds like that could have been a thing, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely sounds like he was poisoned and murdered, 100%. That's what it sounds like to me at this point.
Especially the
What a
way he
fucking
was
idiot.
found.
That's just karma striking instantly.
He was asking for
Hey,
it.
bro, we don't have test strips invented yet, but watch your drinks. Have your own drink. Don't trust other people's bullshit.
No shit.
Smart. Should be like, thanks, homie. Not like, fuck you.
I'm gonna do what I want.
Every case of that, people with that kind of attitude usually ends up going bad at some point. Just throwing that out there. Listen to your friends.
There's another theory that a different type of poison was used to kill him, but a expert testimony from a professional toxicologist argued that the use of strychnine has such a distinctive odor and taste that it can't be disguised even in strong liquor.
Okay.
You would have to drink a significant amount of it, and it would have to be consumed in one sitting. And the death from strychnine would occur within hours and not days.
Right. So it's not that. Okay. Something else.
There's another theory with a different type of poison. If you dissolve mothballs,
Yeah.
you'll get a poison called naphthalene.
Weird.
It was a common way of poisoning people in the
Yeah.
rural South.
Sounds cheap.
Yeah.
How do you melt? Like, do you just put them in a pot in water? Boiling water or something?
I don't know. You'd have to do it a certain way, right?
Yeah, I guess there'd be a trick to it.
The only problem with that is that it wasn't really fatal.
Just like diarrhea.
Maybe.
Just making them shit their brains out for a
Yeah.
few days, hoping they die.
Before being quote unquote poisoned, Johnson had been diagnosed with an ulcer, and the poison was sufficient to cause them to hemorrhage. He died after 2 days of severe abdominal pain, vomiting, and bleeding from the mouth. So, it could have been that.
That makes sense. 100%, man. Internal bleeding will do it. Coughing too much, just make it worse and worse and worse until you get dead. Probably didn't have the greatest medical care at that point.
No,
know?
not for the 1930s.
Especially for an African American man, unfortunately, of
Yeah.
the time. They didn't probably care too much either to try. Fucking white people.
Fucking white people.
Said the white man.
Many years after conducting an investigation into Johnson's death, the county registrar wrote a note on the back of his death certificate. I apologize because it's going to sound real bad as I
Okay.
am reading straight from the quote. I talked with the white man on whose place this Negro died, and I also talked with the Negro woman on the place. The plantation owner said the Negro man, seemingly about 26 years old, came from Tunica 2 or 3 weeks before he died to play banjo at a Negro dance given there on the plantation. He stayed in the house with some of the Negroes, saying he wanted to pick cotton. The white man did not have a doctor for this Negro, as he had not worked for him. He was buried in a homemade coffin furnished by the county, and the plantation owner said it was, in his opinion, that the man died of syphilis.
Back to the syphilis. Did he screw the owner's wife?
I
He's
hope
good
so.
with the ladies, right?
He's good with the ladies, man. Like
Yeah.
he's got hoes in
Yeah.
low
Did
places.
he get caught blanking the wife? Oh no, Mr. Johnson got syphilis. Sorry. You know?
I didn't know about
Yeah,
it.
another one. Honey, quit giving syphilis to all these guys.
You can't be doing that. The most recent look into Johnson's death was in 2006, so that was
Ooh,
was the
kind
last
of
one.
recent.
Yeah.
Kind of recent.
This medical practitioner suggested that based on the photographs, it showed that he had unnaturally long fingers and one bad eye, and he may have had Marfan syndrome, which could have affected the way he played his guitar and contributed to his death.
Man. I hope our audience doesn't get scarred by syphilis face if they look it up.
Please don't look up syphilis face.
It's good to educate yourself.
If you want to be
Protect yourself.
knowledgeable, you do what you want, man. I'm not here to stop you.
If you yearn for learning.
If you yearning for learning,
Yep.
let's talk about where he may or may not be buried.
Ooh, okay, yeah. Because I feel like we've already heard a few different places.
The exact location of his grave is unknown. There are 3 different places that may be possible sites for where he is buried. There was research in the 1980s and the 1990s which strongly suggests that Robert Johnson was buried in the graveyard of the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church near Morgan City, Mississippi, which is not far from Greenwood, and he's buried in an unmarked grave. A 1-ton cenotaph in the shape of an obelisk listing all of Johnson's song titles was placed in this location in 1990.
Holy smokes.
Conveniently, it was paid for by Columbia Records, who
Who
Don
owned his
worked
rights
for.
or whatever,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Another place was in 1990, a small marker with the epitaph reading Resting in the Blues was placed in the cemetery of Payne Chapel near Quito, Mississippi, by an Atlantic rock group named the Tombstones. They
Homage.
they did this because they saw a photograph in Living Blues magazine of an unmarked spot alleged by one of Johnson's ex-girlfriends to be his actual burial site.
Or she's trying to get clout.
Maybe. Most recent research indicates that the actual gravesite is under a big pecan tree in the cemetery of the Little Zion Church just north of Greenwood. Sony Music placed a marker at this site which bears Johnson's name. Researchers also concluded this was Johnson's resting place in their 2019 biography.
Sounds like there's one option. Sounds like they found it.
Maybe
They concluded it was him, I thought. They should exhume him. Look at the finger bones.
if they can find the body.
If they think he's under the tree,
They're,
they could probably use like LiDAR or something to scan the ground.
maybe they haven't thought of that yet.
Well, here we are.
Here
They better
we
get
are.
paying attention and listening. Somebody sent it to him. Tag him in it.
Tag him in. Here's an interesting look at it. In the 1991 documentary, The Search for Robert Johnson, it suggests that owing to poverty and lack of transportation, Johnson is most likely to have been buried in a pauper's grave very near where he died. And for those of you who don't know, a pauper's grave is a grave paid for at the public's expense because the deceased person's family could not afford one.
You'll have that in a small town.
You'll have that in a small
You'll
town.
have that in today's towns. Not in old towns, just old towns. Shits are expensive.
So what do you think happened, man?
I think he always wanted to be a musician, since he was a kid.
Yep.
Was playing the harmonica and jaw harp, picked up a guitar, wasn't that good, went and trained 2 years with Ike, dedicated 2 years to this craft. They say if you put in 10,000 hours, you're pretty much an expert on something, give or take, right? About 10,000 hours, you're an expert on something.
Sounds accurate, yes.
I think he fit that in that 2 years if he was straight dedicated to it. I don't know. Actually, time-wise, if that math's math, I don't know how many hours are in a year. 8,760 hours in a year.
Oh, he
So
could
2
definitely
years.
fit 10,000 hours in 2 years.
Therefore, I can see him spending those 2 years becoming a master. But I feel like he spent his time learning, maybe built some legend. He was good with his word. It's good for his business and Ike and his legend. And then I think he might have been poisoned. It sounds super plausible. And maybe it wasn't just for flirting. Maybe that's just an excuse given. Maybe he just had some vendettas for other things with women or business deals gone wrong. Maybe he owed people some money or something. Who knows?
It's possible
Yeah. Maybe somebody just didn't like him. He was jealous.
of his skill.
Yeah. An ability to talk and a bunch of haters out in the world, man.
Where do you
Never
think
know.
he's buried at?
I think he's buried at not where the ex-girlfriend said.
So we're getting rid of the Quito, Mississippi.
Yeah, I think she's trying to get some clout. I like the pecan tree theory. Sounds like a nice life, other than the poisoning. I like pecans.
Maybe he did too.
Pecan pie, dude. I love pecan pie.
Pecans.
Pecan, dude. What
But-
do you think? Was his what happened with him and where he's buried?
I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot of hearsay. There's not a lot of actual
Known fact.
historical, factual evidence that any of this happened.
A lot of speculation.
Right.
Yeah,
a lot of
agreed.
interviews, and over the years, people's views can differentiate quite a bit. So,
Mhm.
from what they saw when they were growing up with young Robert Johnson compared to, who they saw later in life, and from what they remember when they were interviewed, could
Mhm.
be drastically different.
Yeah, I mean, people change, man.
They might remember or not remember something specific.
Yeah.
They remember maybe a color wrong or an
Oh, yeah.
item not being there or being there.
Yeah, memories aren't perfect, for sure. But also, we are meant to grow as human beings, and it sounds like Robert steadily chased that throughout his life, right? Like
Yeah, it sounded like he was
he
getting
kept
better.
going back to education all the time, from what we were saying earlier, and he was traveling, going to different places, learning music, and
He was well spoken, which helped.
yeah, like he always seemed like he was in the pursuit of learning, trying to get better.
Well, because we don't actually know what happens, though, or what had happened. So it could have been, he could have made a deal. I mean, there's been a lot of musicians who, quote unquote, have made a deal with the devil to improve their musical abilities.
Don't you just think it's people being jealous?
Absolutely. 100%. That's a definite interpretation.
That's just my logical side.
Sounds like Waterboy's mom. It's the devil. You can't
Right.
be good.
And Gata's so max, got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
I think he's buried under the pecan tree also.
Do you?
Yeah.
Isn't a pleasant thought?
Yeah, I like that better than just like in an unmarked grave near a Baptist church.
Under an obelisk.
Under an obelisk. Yeah. A cenotaph. A
That's a little
1-ton
weird.
cenotaph.
That's kind of weird.
That's wow.
It's cool. He's a legend either way. Did some incredible stuff. Influenced a lot of music that I'm sure we love today that we have no idea ties back to it, but probably stems from some of the things he did.
It's incredible. Music really carries with a
Right.
lot of people. So good for Robert.
Hell yeah. Good job, Big Johnson. Robert Big Johnson.
Bob John.
Big Ball Johnson. Robert Big Ball Johnson.
Robert Big Bell
That's
Johnson.
what it was.
Okay, man. I think that's all we got.
That's bullshit.
That was a lot of information to take in. It was fun.
It was really interesting.
Thanks for telling me all that.
Yeah. Thought that was a cool topic.
Thanks for letting my mind wander and get curious with it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We love you.
As always, I'm Tyler,
I'm Cody.
and this is the Edible Attitude Podcast.